In the year of the samurai, is Ghost of Yotei the best samurai game we've seen this year? Is this Sucker Punch's best game of all time? And is this game the wokest of wokeness? We're going to find out all that stuff in our review for Ghost of Yotei. So I just finished Ghost of Yotei after putting in about 50 hours, and I have to say, man, this game is very, very good. It absolutely blew me away in a lot of different ways that I did not expect, while also keeping very, very close to the traditional story that we saw in Ghost of Tsushima. I know you're all kind of wondering how similar is it to the previous game, and a lot of folks went into it, myself included, thinking, okay, we have a whole new samurai game. It's going to feel exactly the same. It's going to look exactly the same. And although there are some similarities there, I think it is very different in some important ways. And I think the first version of it that comes across immediately is we're not playing as Jin anymore. And I'm really excited about that, because if you watch my original Ghost of Tsushima review, I did not like Jin. I didn't think Jin was a really cool character. I thought that the story that they pulled around him wasn't great. And now we have Atsu, this young woman who was the witness to a brutal murder of her family and is left for dead by this gang called the Yotei Six. And after surviving the ordeal, she collects herself and goes on this quest for justice as this mysterious Onryo, which is, for those who don't know, basically a vengeful spirit in Japanese folklore. It is the ghost of Yotei. And the story they've crafted around her is just really, really dope. What really got me into the game was how this wasn't your actual typical revenge story. Yeah, it starts with the classic setup, but it gets a lot more complex as you go. The supporting characters aren't there just to kind of move the plot along. They feel more real than they did in the previous game, and you really do start to care about their motivations, their backstories, and honestly, the thing that brings it all together is Erika Ishii's performance. Erika brings something very dope to this, and especially in the moments where cutscenes are kind of prevalent. I would say it's a little bit up and down when Erika's character of Atsu is kind of just giving her verbal quips and lines during gameplay and kind of just out in the world talking to other characters.
You are the one who kicked Saito's thugs out of the inn. You are the Onryo.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Too bad, though. I made a bow just for the Onryo. The best of its kind.
Maybe I could give it a look.
I think Atsu really does come to life when speaking to other main characters and other side characters in those moments. And it's like genuinely some of the best voice acting and facial capture performance I've seen in a game recently. Erika brings this perfect mix of vulnerability and determination that makes you really invested in Atsu's journey and makes Atsu themselves feel like a real dope badass. The thing that surprised me the most was about how the story was made to make me think differently about revenge as a theme. Again, it wasn't your typical bad guy kills my family now, I must go kill bad guy story. There's layers to it and questions about justice versus vengeance and about what we become when we pursue vengeance and how do our actions affect the people around us. And it made me start to think a lot about the choices of those characters and their consequences days after finishing it. And I sat with those and really came to a good understanding that this character is flawed, but flawed in really smart ways by the writers that had written this game at Sucker Punch. I think the writing here is very, very strong. I think the ideas that they are laying as foundational tent poles for things to think about are very smart in the way that it works. So I want to give them some props and give them some love for the work they did in terms of writing this really dope story that makes you feel really cool. I do want to dig into gameplay, of course. I think gameplay is extremely important. This game is going to be 50 plus hours of your life, and because this is where it gets really interesting. So if you're coming from Ghost of Tsushima, the combat feels very similar, but it does feel evolved in a certain way. Like they kept in what worked, but added some extra stuff to keep it fresh. The stance system is back, and they tweaked it with some really smart ways. Of course, you got your different stances and different weapon types for different enemies, but now there's much more fluidity to them, and you can chain combos across stances in ways that feel really natural. I think The new weapons are chef's kiss. I think they're super, super good. There's this weapon that I can't remember the name of, where you basically have a weighted ball on the end on one end and almost a sickle on the other end. You get this weapon a little bit later in the game, but it definitely completely changed the way I approach fights. And it's a perfect weapon for a game that really keeps a lot of characters around you. So crowd control is super important, right? You want something that's going to move people away from you while you're fighting, and having these moments where you're almost surrounded and almost overwhelmed by a lot of the folks that are in here. And when you play as Atsu, you get access to some of these tools and techniques that Jin never really had. You know, you have more throwables, you have more interesting throwables, you have more ways that you can, you know, move around the battlefield and find yourself feeling like you are controlling your space in much better ways. And the stealth mechanic that was okay in the first game feels much better in this one. They are not doing the kind of good versus evil levels of it that they were doing in Tsushima, where, you know, you were supposed to be using your stealthiness to kind of play up the idea of you being this ghost and that kind of affecting the world. They're not really doing that in this game, but it has been really improved. It feels more natural. And in the first game, it just felt a little bit clunky, but this one feels a lot smoother. The ability to kind of chain together takedowns feels really good in a way that you feel in Assassin's Creed. Feels super satisfying. And when you're playing as Atsu, there's some really cool fear mechanics where enemies start to get spooked by your presence, but it isn't based on the overall ability to do a specific thing in terms of the lore of you, which is different than you having some ability to have a maneuver or a thing or an action that you do kind of scare and make enemies flee away from you. It's a little bit different in nature, but it still has a little bit of the same understanding of you are a character who has been talked about in the world. There is a whisper of what you're doing. You're going after this Yotei 6 crew. You're basically marking your list off as you kill these enemies. And that fear rolls through the world. Like, people are telling stories of you. So some of that gets incorporated, but it is a little bit different in the way that we saw initially. I think it works well. I think it's not as prevalent as I would want it to be. I was hoping that you'd get a little bit more of it, but it doesn't feel like it's as important in either the first game or this game. It's a nice to have, but doesn't really drive the way that your character is kind of perceived in the world immediately. And sometimes it does come back to bite you in the butt. Like, some people will see you walk up and be like, I know who you are. Because there are also these bulletin boards with pictures of your face on them, these bounty boards where you're on them, and they're kind of looking to take this bounty as well, because you are worth a lot of money based on the money that's been put up by the Yotei 6. Combat difficulty feels really well balanced. I think it's challenging but not frustrating. I think there are moments where, you know, you're mastering the different systems of parrying and dodging and stance switching. And once you do, the combat flow is just incredible. You can do some really fun stuff there. The boss fights are especially memorable. I think there are lots of small incremental twists and turns in some of those. Each one of those fights feels unique and tests certain aspects of your skills, while also having these random, dope, amazingly cinematic duels that you will go and find throughout the world. I don't want to spoil that, because each one is set in a really specific space that showcases Sucker Punch's just ridiculous, amazing level of detail and world building in a way that I don't think anybody else can do.
You're not of Clan Eguchi. You're here for my bounty.
That's right.
Clan Eguchi slaughtered my brothers, then refused to bury them. Their bodies were picked away by crows. I am only returning the favor.
There's more to that story. I fought in the south. I remember hearing about Lord Eguchi's assassination at the hands of your clan.
He deserved to die. They all do.
Why? Because your lord said so? He's dead.
A mercenary could never understand.
I think no one else is really capturing the style or the visual splendor that you get from this locale in the way that Sucker Punch has been doing it. And I think it really speaks to their knowledge and their want to really build this, connection to Japan in a way that doesn't feel forced and doesn't feel problematic and doesn't feel, like they are culture vulturing, to put it nicely. The world around them in the ways that people have kind of labeled them to do. I think they've really paid attention and really are paying homage to those spaces. And you can see a lot of that in exploration because, again, this world design is phenomenal. Every area feels distinct and purposeful. You're not just riding around in empty fields. There's always something interesting to discover. The side quests actually tie to the main story in meaningful ways, which is a really good touch. It doesn't feel like anything is disparate. It feels like everything is really focusing you towards the main path while also giving you really interesting and fun things to be able to do in all these other spaces. Like, of course, you have the things that are collectibles. You can go find the foxholes. You can now do other things with another sidekick that's in the mix too, that will come in and help you from time to time. But all of those things do feel like an extension of the world as opposed to things that have just been dropped in for the sake of it, which is always good, which always feels great and always makes it, important to be able to check those things out in those ways. But you're also kind of seeing that not only from things that is happening to Atsu, but things that are happening from the Yotei 6. You're seeing some villages that have been abandoned. You're seeing people be displaced with camps that have just kind of in the middle of nowhere because they've been driven out because of this evil gang that's been doing this stuff. You're kind of seeing again how the world feels lived in a way that makes a lot of sense. And, you're traversing on this horse that is driving through and riding through everywhere, and that feels better and moving around in those spaces. But also weather plays a really interesting role in the game too. Weather actually affects gameplay in interesting ways. When it's raining, your footsteps get dampened a little bit, so it makes it a little bit harder for enemies to hear you when you're approaching. It's great for stealth missions. Sometimes you even want to take missions, especially because there's a lot of people around and it's raining. So you're like, ooh, let me go potentially do this mission at nighttime. Let me go do this mission when it is raining and when there's different elements in the space to be able to kind of take advantage of. And this is where the game really shines, because I think all of those pieces together make what is the best looking game on the PlayStation 5 to date. This game is stunning. This game is gorgeous. And I'm playing it on the PlayStation 5 Pro. So all the footage you're seeing right now is from the PlayStation 5 Pro on the PlayStation 5 Pro fidelity quality setting. So the lighting systems they've implemented are just stunning. Whether you're watching the sunrise over a beautiful mountain range or seeing the shadows kind of dance through the bamboo forest, it's all just breathtaking stuff. The character animations are next level too. Facial animations, body language, everything just feels super natural. And during cutscenes, I found myself just kind of staring at the details, the way Atsu expressions change and shift between kind of this determination and vulnerability, and how her posture changes when she's in this kind of ghost mode, when she's kind of just being herself. It's all incredibly done well. And that kind of moves to the small things, the way like fabric moves in the wind and how kind of mud and blood sticks to your armor, and the way that the snow deforms when you're in it. Again, these are all things that we've seen across the visual landscape for games in this generation. But it feels like Sucker Punch really does take the time to see how all of these pieces just work together really well. Particle effects are really beautiful too. I think, you're looking at, lightning bugs fly around the screen and all those things. Those all also add another layer of it. But I think, again, going back to all of this running on PlayStation 5 Pro, it was really good. I didn't have any frames dropping. All of the things that I just talked about were smooth as butter. The haptic feedbacks on the DualSense Edge were even better. It all adds to this layer of the game. When you're drawing your bow, feeling the tension kind of come through the controller. When you're riding your horse and feeling the gallops kind of in the controller. And the audio in this game is super good. Like, they've done a good job not only mixing in really smart VFX of like the sound of swords hitting and, you know, just arrows cutting through the air. All of those things feel extremely well done and just very immersive. I think, you know, there are just pieces of this that make the world feel special. And I think what Sucker Punch does extremely well is they take all those moments, all your sensory attributes, and they really play to them in a good way that makes their game shine in an amazing way. Like, is the game perfect? No. You know, no game is perfect. You know, sometimes the camera gets a little bit wonky during some of the fights. I think when you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies, sometimes it doesn't really work as well as you would want. The camera lock that you have in the game kind of works sometimes and kind of doesn't. Like, there is this idea that you want to be spinning the camera around yourself while you're taking on these fights and getting hit from different angles. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't feel as good as it necessarily needs to, because you're getting shot from a thing off camera, or you're getting run up on by multiple enemies, and sometimes you just can't see everything that you want, and that doesn't necessarily help you getting through some of the fights that you want. All that said, you know, a couple of new things that got thrown into the mix that I think were bullet points on the back of the box for Ghost of Yotei that I think kind of worked and maybe didn't were some of the new modes that they put in, visual and audio modes. The Miike mode, which intensifies the game's visual style with a closer camera and some blood splatters and some more blood splatters. In the Watanabe mode, which supposed to swap out traditional Japanese soundscapes for like these lo-fi beats. I think they're okay. I don't think they really add that much to the overall experience. I think the lo-fi mode felt really out of place in a lot of different ways. It does feel cool in small snippets where it does feel like it ramps up the overall experience, but overall I turned it off for the most part early on. Played around with it, looked at it to see if it was decent, and it didn't really do much for the overall game experience.
Come on!
Let's see what you're made of. Kill us all! Lord Saito will pay me well.
All of this to say, I think this is Sucker Punch's best game to date. I think Ghost of Yotei is brilliant. I think this is one of those things that if you're trying to boycott this game, you're an idiot, because it doesn't really do anything. And also, you're going to miss out on one of the best games of the year. I think this game is brilliant. I think it's super good. I really want to give props to Erika Ishii. I think they have brought something very special to this performance. Getting a chance to meet them at San Diego Comic-Con when I was hosting the Mortal Kombat panel was a pleasure. I had been a big fan of their work for a long time. And getting to see them talk about, you know, their likeness being the main part of this storytelling kind of game, it just really brought some smiles to my face, knowing that they are going to be the person who is going to be the main thing that you see during this game for as long as you're playing it. And there are moments where, you know, I couldn't really separate Atsu from Erika in those moments. I was like, in Duels, there were parts where Erika's face would be there, and I was like, yo, beat this dude's behind. It was super dope to be able to see those moments and feel, like that Erika was embodying this, and they were in all the real ways, which was super, super cool. So I have to say, if you're on the fence about this, don't be. This game is fire. This game is dope. There's still a bunch of things I still need to go unlock. A couple of weapons and a couple of kind of more masteries of those weapons that I need to go unlock. There's a couple of baddies out in the world that I need to go take care of too. And you can finish the story and still have some of those moments in the space to be able to go find and go work through. But man, this is a game that I have been hoping for a long time. I think the conversations we're seeing outside of the game right now don't deserve the merit that even I'm giving it right now. But I would say, if you're looking to give Sucker Punch some props, you should, because they are a damn good studio who makes really fantastic games. And I think Ghost of Yotei is the pinnacle of what they've been able to put together so far. This is a must play. This is a game that I would give 5 out of 5 car faces. I'll put that somewhere on the screen. But definitely go cop this joint. I think it's really good. And shout out to our friends over at PlayStation and Sony for providing us code to be able to check this out early. What is so great about what they did on coverage for this game is they gave us a long time to play through this thing. And as a reviewer, a solo reviewer, a person who's doing this work by themselves, that is amazingly helpful and showed a ton of confidence in this game in a lot of ways that I had hoped. So massive shout out to them as well for getting us together and working with us and always supporting our show. That is everything for Ghost of Yotei. Please go check out more of our reviews on the Spawn on Me channel. We'll have more episodes up on Spawn on Me's channel as well for the podcast. I've had to take a little bit of time off. I've been job hunting and also digging through a lot of other stuff, some personal stuff that's gone on. But definitely go check out more of the work. We love doing this stuff and we love doing it for y'all. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Leave some comments there. Let us know what you think about the game. Let me know what you think about my review. And we'll all check you out very, very soon with more dopeness come to you from Spawn on Me very, very soon. Much love. Peace.